Just okay, sounds good. How's that? Better? Better? Good. I was noticing Peyton had to bend over to hit the mic. I do not have that situation. So here's our story. It's an old story. You probably know it, but like most old stories, it's best when you kind of tell it yourself. And it's the story of Jacob wrestling with the angel. Now, scholars tell us the story was first written down about 900 before the Common Era, but probably existed about 1,000 years before that in oral tradition. It's an important story, but it's not a unique story. Across the ancient world at this time, there are lots of stories about a patriarch wrestling with God or the angels and winning. We don't have any stories about when the patriarch lost. But anyway, this is one in which it won. So it's an archetype. It's a story that exists and it tells us a lot about ourselves. And so you may recall the way it goes. Jacob was not a great guy. Before the term identity theft was invented, he was an identity thief. He stole from the birthrights from his brother Esau, sold the family farm, cleaned out the bank account, and disappeared. He lived really well for a long time, albeit for obvious reasons in a faraway land. But one day his conscience started to nag him just a tad. And so he decided maybe he'd like to make amends to Esau. So he did what any good guy would do, gather up gifts, family, wives, servants, all this other good stuff, and started to head back toward Esau. On the way, he got the word that Esau was coming his way. And the record isn't clear, but apparently Esau was not bringing gifts. So Jacob again struck out and decided to do the one right thing that appeared to him. He sent his family gifts on to meet with Esau, kind of work things out, and he went into the woods to wait it out. So isn't it great? This is just a great old story, right? So, while he was in the woods, though, this is where it gets good. A stranger burst into the encampment and started to fight with Jacob. So Jacob began fighting, and the battle lasted all through the night. And Jacob became convinced that this wasn't any ordinary person, but he wasn't sure who this person was. So finally, about dawn, the stranger asked to break off the fight. And Jacob saw his advantage, and what he did was he asked for a blessing. A very important thing. Again, you note the time context of this story. Jacob, the stranger, asked a question in return. What's your name? Now, again, think about the time period. You don't answer this one by saying Bubba, right? When you ask your name in the ancient world, you're asking for who are you really? What's your innermost self? So Jacob answered. He gets a blessing from the stranger and he gets a new name. And with his new name, Israel, goes on to make amends to his brother and to found a nation. Now, I like this old story because it's just got all kinds of great stuff around people right in it. But here's the really important thing. In addition to being an identity thief before there were identity thieves, Jacob was a UU before there were UUs. You guys don't, now, come on now. You go back, you read it yourself. Go read it yourself. There's absolutely nothing in this story about right beliefs, right practices, right words, facing east, none of that stuff. The whole story centers on an encounter with something beyond yourself and a transformation. That's what makes this a UU story. So when I think of it also from a UU standpoint, it's a great bridge story. We sometimes encounter people with different faith perspectives, could be Buddhist, Hindu, evangelical Christians, whatever, and you can get automatically tied up in the doctrine. Instead, we can follow the trace of the story. What was your encounter with the all-encompassing? However you define that, what was your encounter? And how were you changed as a result of that encounter? We can connect on that. And we can connect on ways without ever getting into the doctrinal discussion, whatever, and we can discuss person to person the meaning of their experience and the impact of them as people.
Thank you. And now we'll have our offertory. So pass a basket. If if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the maintenance and upkeep of this space and this community. And we'll also have some music for centering. Okay, and now we're going to sing together. I mean, this is the UU standby 123 Spirit of Life.
All right. A lot of academicians in this group, and they tell me that there is no finer way to warm up an audience than to start them off with a pop quiz. So here you go. All right, one question only. Do you believe in God? It's just yes or it's no. Okay. Now, while you contemplate on that, the Pew Research Foundation asked that question a lot, but a nice broad sample of Americans. And what they found is, as you know, the percentage of Americans who have religious affiliations is dropping. So the nuns, get to that category and says, which affiliation are you? None of the above. Nuns is now standing at about 30% of the U.S. population. So that's a shift. God, however, is polling pretty well. There's about 90, 80%, depending on when the survey is conducted and so forth. Do you believe in God or a higher power? You have to add that. About half the folks believe in God as described in the Bible. I don't know what that means, to be honest with you, but anyway. And the other half would say simply a higher power. Now, as a faith perspective, UUs don't insist on a single notion of God, and many of us don't believe in God at all. Okay. So the good news for you taking to the pop quiz is both answers were correct. Everybody wins here. So this is a good place to be. So for us, the issue is really not whether you believe in God or not. That's a point of religious doctrine. For us, the real question is, how has your life been changed by your encounter with whatever is your concept of the all-encompassing, whatever is your concept of that which is beyond you? So let's take this out and see this, because this will tie back in to the story of Jacob. Well, let's start by doing a little reset. I imagine most of us have either struggled with, discarded, or completely annoyed with the whole discussion about whether God is the old guy with the white beard in the clouds. I myself have nothing against old guys with white beards. But, all right, but let's go forward. for fun, let's go into the Wayback Machine, and we're going to step about 4,000 years before the Common Era. You had no idea you're going to do this, but this is a treat for those. There's those in the congregation who need to learn something every meeting. Here it is. It's coming up. So 4,000 years before the Common Era, we're going to listen in on discussions going on in the Proto-Indo-European language set. This is the language set. Oh, there it is. This is the language set that gave rise to Sanskrit, to Greek, to Latin, and all those other good things and so forth. If you've ever filled out a form and they ask you your domicile and you think, what is that? You have just spoken Proto-Indo-European language. And if you said equine, you've done it again. So this language is still with us. Now, these ancient people, don't correct me. I can see you ready. I can see it. I can see it. There's somebody in every congregation that's going to fight back on this. Anyway, so these people, not surprisingly, they had a word for God. It sounded a little bit like Zusvater. Forget the southern accent. Don't correct me. Zusvater. If you listen, you can hear where the Roman god Jupiter got his name and the Greek god Zeus got his name. All right. It's a compound noun. It means Father, daylight, sky, God. Now, think about it. 4,000 years before the Common Era. No telescopes, no microscopes, no understanding of plate tectonics, no social media. And when these people got down to think about what is God, they reached to the farthest reaches of their world, the horizon. They sought to capture warmth and beauty and light. And since we know that they were a patriarchal culture, they reached to the highest order of belonging. In that case, it was Father. Now, if we were to create that word for God now, it'd be different, right? Because our experiences are different. But we would still reach as far out as we could, maybe to an expanding universe. We would still probably try to capture concepts of beauty and warmth and light and safety. And we would probably still try to capture concepts of belonging, even as we move beyond patriarchal cultures and binary notions of gender. Belonging's important. Now, so what word would you use for God? Noted UU theologian Forrest Church has commented that remember that God is just a symbol with that which is greater than all. It's a construct. It's something we use to help us understand something we can't see or touch or feel or whatever, but we believe it's real. We light candles as symbols of hope. Nobody believes that hope is sitting in that little stoneware dish over there. Same for God. We use words to help us understand the experience that we know is out there, and it's our words, and both the limitations of our own world and our hopes and aspirations. Now, I would guess that the names for the all-encompassing would be as many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as there are people in this room, and since there are UUs, there's probably a few more, okay? But let me add a wrinkle. This is not an abstract concept, even though constructs are kind of abstract. For us, the notion of God is completely tied to the concept of transformation, right? It's not just something we sit out there. It's an encounter. It's the result of intentionally setting yourself in direct relationship to a presence outside of yourself that's life-changing. Now, to get the creative juices going, Catherine's absolutely correct. There was that little poem from Reinhold Niebuhr. There's also his brother, Richard Niebuhr. So anyway, but he's a good guy too, but he didn't write that poem. But test these out. Test these out as ways in which these people are transformed by the experience with the all-encompassing. They may fit with you, they might not fit with you, but these are languages, these are stories that people often tell when they try to talk about how they were changed, the transformation, how they were changed as a result of the encompassing of the encounter with the all-encompassing. Okay. There's 4. So the first of those transformational experiences might be to gain confidence that our lives will extend and impact beyond our lives. Okay, now, most of the time, I know that was abstract, wasn't it? So, most of the time, when we think of achieving something, we think about the next year's garden, the next course we're going to teach, the next job we're going to get, and so forth and so on. And if you do the management texts, you'll find that they show up SMART objectives: specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-oriented. You're welcome. Anyway, but we know that the real goals that we might have that are truly important are greater than the human lifetime. A just society, a community of equity, embracing all people. Those don't fall into SMART objectives. Our dreams are really not limited to the length of time we have on this earth, but the experience, many people, the experience of God helps frame their existence beyond their limitation, to have a fulcrum, to have a vantage point that's bigger than us. That experience can grant them the confidence that their efforts, however time-bound and limited, can contribute in meaningful ways to the aspirations we can only imagine. Some time ago, this congregation did a little celebration of the founders of this organization and so forth. And I didn't check this out, so I'm at risk here. But my guess is if you looked at that picture, you find that most of those people are dead. And yet, the chairs we sit on are real, the services we have are real, this community is real. Somehow, they lived beyond their lives. And for many people, the concept, the experience of God allows them to grasp that and to work for things that they can only imagine. That was one. And by the way, Niebuhr only had 4 points, so you're safe. There's not 20. So the second transformational experience might be the experience of finding purpose. Okay. Now there's a concept, right? So we live immersed in a cacophony of experiences. We have fragmented responsibilities, conflicting demands. We're often confronted with suffering, right? Injustice and uncertainty. How do you make sense of recent political events? You go for it. Or the consequences of a natural disaster. Our challenge is to choose right actions even when the way isn't well marked. The outcomes are difficult to see. To not be paralyzed into inaction or to descend into the slough of relativism. Your assignment is to use the word slough of relativism in a sentence this week to amaze your friend. But that's what it is, isn't it? It's really, a little of this, a little of that. It doesn't really matter that much in, what's for dinner? Tacos again. That sounds good. So what we seek is clarity of purpose. For many, the experience of God can provide a moral compass in the world, a sense of accountability, a source of inspiration, a source of strength. This experience can motivate us to care for others and to work for justice, guiding us to use our unique gifts and talents to make a positive impact on the world. Niebuhr also reminds us in his short prayer that nothing we do, however virtuous, isn't that great, can be accomplished alone. Despite increasingly pervasive technology and social media, we can still, a small bug who's decided this is a really critical point. Where is Mike Pence when you need him? Anyway, go away, take him. That's your job. You're supposed to take care of the bugs. Yeah, anyway, despite increasingly pervasive technology and social media, we can still miss the sense of belonging and connection. Pressures of work, family, personal responsibilities pull us in different directions, and they leave little time for building or nurturing relationships. Further, as for many of us, finding a community that accepts and supports us can be a lifelong struggle. Whether it's due to our race, our gender, sexual orientation, or religious beliefs, we may feel like we don't fit in anywhere. And yet, acting purposefully, being personally fulfilled, and making a difference in this world requires the support of many others in many, many capacities. What we seek is strength in community. For many, the experience of God can provide that ground for our sense of belonging. It can be the foundation for that community we seek, the network of like-minded and compassionate people for solace, celebration, and strength. And finally, a fourth transformational experience that many people have in their encounter with the all-encompassing might be the experience of being forgiven and forgiving. I know it's got to seem a little strange. You're in a UU church and we're going to talk about forgiveness, and you're wondering if you walked into the wrong place. Anyway, or I did, perhaps. But hey, listen to me out. Hear me out. Anyone who's tried their best and failed has misunderstood and been misunderstood. Anyone who's found that they came up short of the standards that they needed desperately to meet, they know the need for forgiveness. I think forgiveness is key to accepting yourself, picking yourself up, dusting yourself off, and getting back in the game. It's also key to embracing others. If you don't forgive yourself, how do you gain the courage to reach out again? If you don't forgive others, how do you build a community? What we seek, then, is to forgive and be forgiven. For many, God is at the center of this unconditional love that allows us to forgive ourselves and others. This experience sets the tone and the possibility that life is much more than a tally of rights and wrongs that must somehow sum at the end. It's a notion of healing that heals both ourselves and enables us to help others to heal. So there you have it. It was a short prayer, wasn't it? But anyway, he packs a lot in. But let's do a little recap, and then we'll have some time for people who want to have some conversation about this. But just because we covered a lot of territory here. Well, let's just start. So UUs have left open the notion of God. Okay. Our faith perspective grants us the latitude to wrestle with our God and to ask his blessing. For UUs, the notion of God is completely tied to the concept of a transformational relationship. It's to connect with something outside of ourselves in order to become our best selves. Okay. So if you were moved to do so, extra credit assignment, what word would you use for God? Remember, the word God is simply our symbol for the all-encompassing. Our forebears talked about reaching wide, to bring light, to belong. It's your word. It's our symbol. Symbol we reuse reflects our limitations, certainly, but it also expresses our experiences and aspirations. The real question for us is, how has your life been changed by your encounter with whatever is your concept of the all-encompassing? What kind of person have you become? You may be looking to be transformed in any of the ways we've lifted up here. It could be confidence in your role in the future, purpose, community, forgiveness, or something else, very personal. But remember that this isn't an abstract thinking exercise. Our archetypal story of Jacob reminds us that it's a relationship. It's an engagement with the all-encompassing. Maybe it's not a literal fight by yourself in the middle of the night, but it is an inner, passionate, and protracted engagement taking place through encounters with the world around us, contemplation, sacred texts, spoken words, deep people like the ones around us, and personal deeds. My old counseling professor said it this way: nothing difficult is ever easy. He got paid to say things like that. So these are where the struggles will take place between ourselves and our highest aspirations. And these are where the blessing will be delivered. What kind of person would you become? So be it. You want to